Hi, this is Dr. Lex, episode 3. This is a video series where I answer some of your comments. If they are nice and quick and easy, I'll just make a little video and put them all together in a compilation. So today we're looking at how to get one animation to work at a time, how to create a wobbly antenna, how to make music zones, and how to pick up and throw and then pick up an object that you've thrown. So enjoy! This is from No Scope Felix.
Is there a way to stop an action, for example an animation, from playing, when another one gets set into place? I really am struggling to figuring that out.
Right, so we've got a scenario here. We've got our puppet. I've got two timelines. Each of these timelines I've got some keyframes in that raise one or other of those arms. And I've got them wired into the triangle and the square buttons. So if we go into play mode, possess my puppet, right, I press square, he raises up that arm. If I press triangle, he raises up that arm. But I can put both of them up together. Now, in the comments they want it so that it was one or the other. You couldn't put them both up at the same time. So in order to do that, we're going to delete these wires. I'm going to put something in between. I'm going to put selector. I'm also going to change these timelines from a play once situation to a sustain. Right, now this selector needs 3 options. So A is going to be our off situation, so no animations playing. B is this animation and C is this animation. So we're going to wire B to there and C to there. Let's go to triangle to B, square to C. So the triangle is going to activate this timeline and the square is going to activate this timeline. Now we're going to open up the, I'm going to open up the tweak menu of that. And you can see an on-end trigger. I'm going to wire that directly into restart timeline. So when it gets to the end, it will reset itself. And also on the end trigger, we're going to get it so that it goes back to input A. So once it's finished doing its animation, it's going to then turn it back to A where there is no animation playing. At the same time, it's also going to reset itself. So next time you go to input B, it's going to be ready to go from the beginning. I'm going to do the same with this one. Like so. And we're also going to reset these timelines if you start playing when this is halfway through. So we're going to say when you press output B, we're going to reset output C. And if you go to output C, we're going to reset output B. Like so. Now this is all wired up now, so it all will play one at a time. So square, triangle, square, triangle, square, triangle. I can't do both of them together, it picks one. There we go. So that is how you set up a selector with all of this extra wiring in order so that it will only play one animation at a time. This comment is from Applausitivity.
I'm trying to make a robot with an antenna that wobbles back and forth like an antenna would. I followed your physical painting tutorial, but it doesn't exactly apply to my situation since I want it to be attached at one end. Any help?
Right, well we've got our mannequin here. He's going to be our robot. And I'm going to go into paint mode. And I'm going to go into tentacle snap. And I'm going to draw my antenna. Like that, there's my antenna. And I tentacle snapped that to his head. And now I'm going to go into the painting properties. Make it physical. And I'm going to reduce the floppiness down and just give it a little bit of wind strength so it's wobbling a bit now. And then I'm going to scope that into the head of my puppet. And there we have an antenna that's wobbling a bit and is attached to his head. You can make it a bit more floppy, like that, which makes it very floppy, so when he runs it's more like hair, which is not what we think we want. So we want it relatively stiff, I think, like that. This wind strength allows it to wobble a bit. So you can make it a bit springy like that. Play about with the... I think that's what you want though. It's got that like springy antenna thing going on. And if you want to copy it, you just scope into it. Like so. Place another one on the other side. There we are. A couple of antennae on top of my robot head. They slightly wobble about, look. Like so. This comment is from Andrew Croce.
Love the tutorial, and I have a quick question. I'm building a hub area for my character and I want the music to change. For when my puppet walks into each different area, does anyone know how to do this, as I would appreciate the help?
Alright, so I've divided up my area into 4 zones. I've coloured the floor so I can see it easily. And I've put a piece of music that I've just grabbed randomly from the Dreamverse. Thank you to the musicians that share their work. So these 4 pieces of music will play when the player enters these zones. And the way it's done is through a trigger zone. So I stick a trigger zone in each of these sections. And that trigger zone is looking for a possessed controller sensor, i.e. this player. And I've wired the detected to the power of my timeline with the music in. And this is set to sustain. So it will only play when it has power. So we'll just go into that. So at the moment, it's not detecting a possessed controller because the player isn't possessed yet. So there's no music playing. There we go, now we have music. And then we've got some different music. It's different again. And now different again, and then back to this one. Now the music will play. So we'll move on to this. Here. See, the music will play from where it left off. Now, if you wanted it differently, so if you wanted it so that it started at the beginning of the track every time you stepped into the zone, it didn't continue, then you have to set it up slightly differently. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a counter. Our trusty counter. I love counters, as well you know. So, whoops. There's our trigger zone. Let's put it in a microchip to make it nice and neat. So we'll just drag our trigger zone into there. Our counter. And the music. So we'll just take that wire out. Right, so what we're going to do is when you detect for the first time, it's going to set that counter off. And that is going to play the music. Now if I left it like that, what would happen is as soon as you walked into the zone, the music would start and it would never stop, because it doesn't matter which zones you go into after that, that music would continue to play. So what we want to do now is set it up so that when you're out of the trigger zone, then it no longer plays this piece of music. So we're going to set that to once. And we're going to say, we're going to put in an AND gate and a NOT gate. So we're going to say when this detect zone is not detecting the player and the counter is full, then we're going to reset the counter and we're going to reset the timeline. Actually, you don't need to let's leave it on sustain. Let's leave it on sustain. Let's see what that does. So far it's not possessed, so it doesn't play. Wait till it gets to the drums. Yeah, it's starting again from the beginning. So that's how you would set that up. The reason we've got this NOT gate and this AND gate for this put that there, is because if I had just said NOT for the trigger zone, then it would set itself off even if it couldn't find a possessed person. So it would start immediately. We don't want that. We only want it if it's detecting our puppets. So we only want it to set off as soon as that counter is on. So that's the situation. So we've got our piece of music that will play all the way from the beginning. Otherwise, just put it on sustain and he'll move around and the music will continue to play where you left it off. This comment is from H2O Waters.
Any tutorials you'd recommend for throwing an object and picking it up where it landed?
Okay, so I've built a mechanism where I can pick up a ball, throw it, and then pick it up again. So let's have a look at this. So here's my player. I can walk up to the ball, pick it up, and press triangle, and throw it, and then pick it up again, and throw it. And this can continue as long as you're wanting to do it. So there we go. There's my mechanism. Obviously, you'll do much better animations than me. This is just very rough and ready just for this tutorial. Okay, so we've got a little bit of logic in our puppet, and most of the logic is actually inside the ball. So here is our microchip inside the ball. And we also need a copy of this ball with its microchip to emit. Now, when you clone a microchip on an object like this, any wires that go out from that microchip to another microchip are removed. So when you clone this microchip to make the ball that you're going to emit, you will need to add the wire to the emitter again because it will have been removed when you cloned it. Right, so the first thing we need to do is set up a trigger zone in the player. This is in front of him at his feet. This is the zone in which if he sees a ball, if there's a ball within this zone, and then he'll bend over to pick it up. Now, I've got it so that it's automatic. You could have a situation where this trigger zone, instead of automatically doing that, you also have a button press for the player. So something will come up and say press square or something, and then he'll do the action. This will do it automatically as soon as he comes across a ball that he can pick up. So it's up to you. It just means a little bit more gadgetry in between. Right, so anyway, this is looking for a tag. It's looking for the tag collect. And that tag is in our microchip on our ball. There it is there. Collect. You name your microchip here. And so when the ball is in the trigger zone, this is where we set off our microchip. Right, first of all, we're going to set off a counter. This is a 1-0 counter, so this is acting as a Boolean switch. Other people like to use switches. I personally like counters. It's up to you what you choose to do. I just find this much easier to reset and deal with. So I've called this pickup ball, and this counter then will activate these 3 gadgets. This first one is a counter to run this keyframe. So this is making sure that this keyframe runs the once. You could also have a timeline in here instead of a keyframe, so you can have a more complicated bending over and picking up the ball animation. In which case you won't need this timer. This timer here is there because keyframes do not have an on-end trigger output. So I've got a timer here. If you had a timeline instead, then you could use the on-end trigger to activate our teleporter. So that's why I've got a frame and a timer. This also activates a controller sensor, turns the power on our controller sensor. This is what we're going to use to press our triangle button. So make sure you've set this to be remote. The reason we are using this controller sensor and not the one in the puppet is because I only want this to activate when you're actually holding the ball, and it's much easier to manage with a separate controller sensor. So those 3 things are set off. So after the timer or your timeline is finished, then we're going to teleport our ball into the hand of the player. Now the player has got a tag attached to his hand, and you will need to ensure that the angles are correct for the object you're picking up. I'm picking up a ball, so it's much easier it doesn't really matter which way is up, down, left and right, because it's just going to attach to the hand correctly. But if you've got a sword or something, then you have to make sure that you get that in the right position and that the angles are correct for however he's holding it. So you'll need to play about with that. So it's teleporting to this tag. So I've chosen this by going through with the down D-pad till I get the I don't want collect, I want hand. There we go. So that's going to teleport to the hand tag, and it's going to do it permanently because this is a timer finished signal. So that's a permanent signal that's set off from a permanent counter on situation. So there we go. That's running that. Right, our throw mechanism then, we're going to wire a triangle to our counter, and our counter is then going to set off the power on our timeline. Our timeline has got the movement of our arm, and at the end of it I've put in a 1-1 counter, and this is going to activate when it gets to the end of this timeline, and this is what sets everything else off. So we've got a lot of wires. There's 4 wires coming from the counter full of this counter. So what it does is it resets this microchip and this microchip. It also sets off our emitter, and it also destroys the ball in the hand. So when you throw it, it will destroy the ball in the hand and then emit our new ball. And our emitter here, that's going to emit that clone of that first ball, and that's what you're going to be throwing and picking up from now on. Don't forget, you need to rewire up to the emitter when you clone that, and you also need to set that on, emit with wires, otherwise none of this will work. Here's how you set the emit speed. This is how far you can throw the ball. You'll see I've put the emitting place. That's roughly where the hand, where it comes up, that's roughly where it will be, and I've got it at an angle so it goes slightly up into the air. So you need to fiddle about with this gizmo to get it so it's pointing in the correct direction. Set it for once. I've got it so all of these are maximum emitted infinity, so that you can carry on picking up and throwing that ball as much as you like. So that is it. that is the mechanism, and that will allow you to pick up and throw that ball as much as you like. Obviously, if the ball goes over an edge or falls down a hole or something, then it's gone, and then all of this is destroyed. But otherwise, you can pick up and throw that ball as much as you like. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. If you've got any more queries or comments, please leave them in the video or on any of my tutorials. I am making a big list. I have a Trello board. If you go to the community tab, there is a link there to my Trello board, so you can see the sort of things that people are asking for and what I'm hopefully working down the list for. Some of the things are a little bit more complicated than the others, and I might not be able to do them at the moment, but I'm working on trying to do tutorials for as many of your requests as I can. That does mean, however, that if you're making something now, I might not be able to get an answer to you in a timely fashion to help solve your problem. I suggest going to indreams.me and their feedback forum. There is a how do I section that you can post your questions on, and I'm sure there'll be somebody there that can help you out. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in your dreams.